Hi, my name's Chris and I live in Australia, and today I'm going to be talking about house prices in Australia and how it's absolute pedal to the metal right now, with house prices increasing, just hitting record high after record high, just keep going up. And I want to have a comparison to kind of understand how it's going. Now, I don't want to look at the 60s, 70s and 80s and be like, it was like that back then and now it's like this. No, I don't want to draw that comparison because it was a long time ago, guys, and it's a completely different economical environment that we're in right now. So I want to have a look at the last couple of years and compare it across that way. And I also want to have a look at the government's new 5% deposit guarantee thing, where they're saying with only a 5% deposit, you can get your first home. And just how it's absolutely rubbish, and just I can't believe how they're just pushing that out there with a straight face lying through their teeth. But let's have a look where we are now with housing prices and where they've been over the last couple of years. If we look back into 2019, at the end of October, the average house price was $584,000 in Australia. Fast forward to 2025, at the end of October, the average house price in Australia was $948,000. If we just go back 12 months, the average house price in Australia was $889, or $59,000 cheaper than what it is right now. A $59,000 increase to the pricing over just 1 year. If we break away from the average across the whole country nationally, and we just look at the combined capital cities, the average house price is now $1,091,000. If we exclude capital cities and we only look at regional and rural, the average house price is now $726,000. But price increases are one thing. What we need to compare it against, though, is the median wages. So are wages increasing to match the increases to house prices? The answer is no. In 2019, 6 years ago, the median income was $52,000. Now, the median income data for 2025 isn't available till next month, when the ABS releases its working arrangements report. But if we have a look at last year's median income, which was $67,600, and we apply a 4.1% growth across to it, that'll kind of put 2025 optimistically around $70,000 as the median income in Australia. So if we try to draw some comparisons between house prices increasing and income increasing in Australia, well, if we look from 2019 to now, income's only increased on the median by 34%, but housing has increased by 62%. So this is showing that income on the median is not keeping parity with the increasing cost of house prices. So more and more people are going to get left behind, and they will not get onto the property ladder if this continues to widen. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a inequality gap starting here. It's already well on track, but it's getting worse and wider and worse and wider. So how does the government try to address this? How do they try and keep us happy and say, we got this under control, guys? Well, they say, well, we're going to give first home buyers a 5% deposit guarantee. This is their newest harebrained scheme.
It will have a minimal impact. There will be a slight increase in prices, but already 185,000 Australians have benefited from this scheme, with minimal impact on prices. Treasury did modelling. They suggest a very small increase.
The economics are, according to experts, you are adding demand into a hot property market.
What we are doing here is genuinely opening up home ownership to a generation of young people.
But wait till the prices go up. They'll have to pay more.
Bridget has talked there about the fact that we've got a generation of young people growing up in our country who are telling us they're delaying starting a family.
If you increase demand and not supply, the prices will go up.
Really respectfully, Nat, the Department of Treasury, the best economists in the country, have looked at this. That is not the finding that they've made.
There will be a slight increase in prices.
5% deposits have been available for a very long time. You just had to get lender's mortgage insurance. This is nothing new. You could always get 5% deposits. You just had to get LMI with it, and then you're good to go. I guess to some credit, it is getting rid of LMI because the government's backing it for first home buyers, and LMI has been the biggest scam ever perpetuated. It's just a complete rip-off. The RBA knows, and this is why the government took it on. They said, oh, what is a super low risk thing that's not going to cost us any money? Because the RBA knows that it's only 0.01% of properties in Australia that are in rental arrears and underwater on property value. And if they default from that point, that's where LMI would step in if the house is being repossessed, but every other property has increased in value, so the banks can go sell it on, and LMI is just completely redundant at that point because the increased value on the housing, plus what they've already paid off to that point so far before they fell into arrears and fell behind, well, they're covered. LMI is just a scam. LMI is just a waste, and it's just an insurance scheme that's been ripping people off for a very long time. It's almost full circle because the Australian government brought in lenders mortgage insurance, government owned and controlled back in 1965, and then the Liberal government went and sold it off and chopped it up and privatised it in the 90s. So as a first home buyer, it's not that you bring a 5% deposit and then you're going to get a home, and because the government's going to cover the other 15% and you're all good from there. Well, no, the issue is you are still restricted by your borrowing capacity. So let's try use some median incomes. If you're on $70,000 a year and use the 5% guarantee, because the government has said you can get your house with just a 5% deposit, you can afford to buy around the $400,000 mark based off your income. And that's just not going to get you in. The reality is the system is no longer for a single income earner. Now, if you and your partner are both on the 70K a year median income, you will be in the market to buy up to around $750,000. That's $200,000 under the current average house price nationally, or $340,000 under the combined median for capitals. So for the couple on the median income, getting their maximum borrowing capacity and using the 5% guarantee to get a place for $750,000, they are now both immediately entering mortgage stress. Mortgage stress kicks in when over 30% of your post-tax income is going towards paying the mortgage. In this scenario, the couple are entering their mortgage at 45% each of their post-tax income. Now, if that young couple does what many young couples do and they want to start a family, well, mum can't drop out of the workforce anymore because then that's 90% of dad's income going to service the mortgage. So this is forcing a lot of young people to put off having kids into their 30s. And that's part of the reason our fertility rates are plummeting. Those that have kids that are young are putting their kids into daycare as young as 6 weeks old because they need the two incomes. The system has become cruel. The government has made it loud and clear that housing as an investment asset and the giant profits that banks are making off these loans is more important than the Australian family. This government would sterilise every woman in the country and destroy the Australian family for the next 20 years if a guaranteed house prices would keep going up and the big banks kept making their profits. The Australian family, which used to be the backbone of this country and the future of this country, is no longer put first. The big banks, the investors, they're put first now, and the Australian family is left to rot. In 2025, for every first home buyer loan being approved, there was 2 non-owner occupier investor loans being put in place. And these first home buyers are competing with these investors, and 2 out of 3 times they're losing. First home buyers cannot compete with investors. The investors come to the table when they're going to purchase property. They've got equity already. There's leveraged equity on there. They can claim the interest on their loan as a depreciation against their income. If it's a brand new house, they can depreciate the entire cost of the build over the next 40 years as tax deductions. If it's run down and it needs renovations, well, the investor can claim the renovations costs against their taxable income. The owner-occupier, the first home buyer, cannot do any of that stuff, which allows the investor to have a competitive edge. They can put in larger offers because they know all the deductions and depreciation schedules they can use, which is a significant advantage over the first home buyer. The big banks in Australia are some of the most profitable in the world from their market domination of the country. Out of the top 10 largest companies in Australia, 5 are banks. And the majority of the bank's money in Australia is made from loans to residential real estate. Now, over the financial year that just happened, the big 4 banks have collectively made $43.13 billion in net profit before tax. $43 billion while we've been in a cost of living crisis. We're in a cost of living crisis so they can make record profits. The entire system has been changed by this greed that's occurring on housing, this fascination on house prices going up to the moon, okay, just increasing forever, like a company looking for eternal profits, eternal growth. We're trying to do here in Australia with housing. A basic right of people having a roof over their heads is being commoditised for profit. What was once achievable for the vast majority of people in this country, where one person goes to work, gets the income, the other one stays at home, raises the kid, is the homemaker, and they could buy a house and live comfortably in this country, that is no longer achievable to the vast majority and only achievable to a select minority. Currently, 1/3 of Australians own their house outright and 1/3 of Australians are paying down a mortgage. So that's 2/3 of the country that want house prices to continue to increase. The other third of the country are renting and they want house prices to stop increasing because there's a direct correlation between houses increasing in price and rents going up. But it's not just the rents going up, they want it to stop increasing so they can catch up themselves and get their foot on the property ladder. They want to have a chance or a hope to buy a house in this country. And look guys, I get it. There's got to be some kind of common ground solution here. 1/3 of people have worked their whole lives to pay off a house and they don't want their house, their life's work to deteriorate in value. 1/3 of people are paying off a mortgage right now and they don't want that extra stress because they're already in mortgage stress right now, high chance of it. They don't want that extra stress of their house going underwater in value, becoming less than what the mortgage is worth, which traps them and locks them in because they can't sell without taking on more debt. And the remaining third that's renting, they want hope. They want hope in this country that they one day too can have a part of that Australian dream. At the start of the video, I mentioned from 2019 to current, the median income's increased by 34%, whereas housing from 2019 to current on the average has increased by 64%. It's lost parity to each other. And as that kind of continues, we start seeing this shape like that, where this is the median income, maybe going up like that, and housing going up like that. And the gap, that's the foot on the property ladder. And as that gap gets wider and wider, less and less people going to get their foot on. So if we go down the track, maybe 20, 30 years down the track, maybe 10, 15 years down the track, what happens when that 2/3 owning a home in this country turns to 50%, half owning a home in this country? And then further down the track, what happens when that half owning a home turns into 2/3 of people renting and only 1/3 own a home? What happens right down the end of the track on an end game that could potentially be happening here, where it's only the wealthy and corporations, companies, investment groups that can afford to buy a property in this country? What happens when 9 in 10 Australians can no longer get on the property ladder? They're all stuck renting while these corporations, companies, conglomerates, the ultra high net worth individuals own all the property in this country. Because we're heading down that path right now. That's where it's heading to. Your super funds are buying up properties. What happens when 9 in 10 people will never have a stake of ownership in this country? What happens at that point? What happens to society? What is it to be Australian when no one can own any of Australia? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments and I'll see you in the next one.